Hello, welcome to Miss Clark Reads to You. I'm reading the conclusion of Tuesdays with Morrie. At the end of the conclusion, we will analyze how it is a full circle conclusion. I look back sometimes at the person I was before I rediscovered my old professor. I want to talk to that person. I want to tell him what to look out for, what mistakes to avoid. I want to tell him to be more open, to ignore the lure of advertised values, to pay attention when your loved ones are speaking, as if it were the last time you might hear them. Mostly, I want to tell that person to get on an airplane and visit a gentle old man in West Newton, Massachusetts, sooner rather than later, before that old man gets sick and loses his ability to dance. I know I cannot do this. None of us can undo what we've done or relive a life already recorded. But if Professor Morrie Schwartz told me anything at all, it was this, : there is no such thing as too late in life. He was changing until the day he said goodbye. Not long after Morrie's death, I reached my brother in Spain. We had a long talk. I told him I respected his distance and that all I wanted was to be in touch, in the present, not just the past, to hold him in my life as much as he could let me. You're my only brother, I said. I don't want to lose you. I love you. I had never said such a thing to him before. A few days later, I received a message on my fax machine. It was typed in the sprawling, poorly punctuated all caps letter fashion that always characterized my brother's words. Hi, I've joined the 90s, it began. He wrote a few little stories, what he'd been doing that week, a couple of jokes. At the end, he signed off this way, : I have heartburn and diarrhea at the moment. Life's a bitch. Chat later? Sortush. I laughed until there were tears in my eyes. This book was largely Morrie's idea. He called it our final thesis. Like the best of work projects, it brought us closer together. And Morrie was delighted when several publishers expressed interest, even though he died before meeting any of them. The advance money helped to pay Morrie's enormous medical bills, and for that we were both grateful. The title, by the way, we came up with one day in Morrie's office. He liked naming things. He had several ideas, but when I said, how about Tuesdays with Morrie? Oh, he smiled in almost blushing way. And I knew that was it. I can really see that imagery right there. I can see Morrie's smile. I can see the blush, the pride. After Morrie died, I went through boxes of old college material, and I discovered a final paper I had written for one of his classes. It was 20 years old now. On the front page were my penciled comments scribbled to Morrie, and beneath them were his comments scribbled back. Mine began, Dear Coach. His began, Dear Player. For some reason, each time I read that, I miss him more. Scroll. Have you ever really had a teacher? One who saw you as a raw but precious thing, a jewel that, with wisdom, could be polished to a proud shine. If you're lucky enough to find your way to such teachers, you will always find your way back. Sometimes it is only in your head, and sometimes it is right along their beds. The last class of my old professor's life took place once a week in his home, by a window, in his study, where he could watch a small hibiscus plant shed its pink flowers. The class met on Tuesdays. No books were required. The subject was the meaning of life. It was taught from experience. The teaching goes on. So let's study that last paragraph. The last class of my old professor's life took place once a week in his home, by a window in his study where he could watch a small hibiscus plant shed its pink flowers. I'll stop there. That's a motif, by the way. So, if we were to go back into the entire book and find all the points where Mitch observed the hibiscus plant growing by the window, absorbing the sunlight, you would see that the hibiscus is a motif because it's carried through. It starts on in the curriculum, which is the very first chapter. The last week of my old professor's life took place once a week in his house by a window in the study where he could watch a small hibiscus plant shed its pink leaves. So notice they shed the pink leaves. It's as though the hibiscus is symbolic of Morrie's being alive and beautiful. It makes me think of the pink leaves, the blush in Morrie's face when Morrie would see Mitch. That just pleasure, as well as the blush when they named the story Tuesdays with Morrie. The class met on Tuesdays. The class met on Tuesdays. No books were required. In the very beginning, it says, it began after breakfast. The subject was the meaning of life. The subject was the meaning of life. It was taught from experience. It was taught from experience. So what is in the curriculum is mirrored in the conclusion. This is called a full circle conclusion. When a writer takes something from the intro, pulls it back into the conclusion, and adds a detail that communicates a deeper meaning. There is no phrase here that says the teaching goes on in the curriculum. But notice the last sentence of the memoir says the teaching goes on. And of course, you know, as well as I know, that it does. Because each time a student, a person, reads this memoir, they are learning from Morrie as their teacher.